Welcome to One Insight. My name is Litvin. I grew up in London and I now live in LA. And this is a podcast for extraordinary top performers. You see, I've coached some of the most successful and talented people on the planet. I see what most people cannot see, and I dare to say what most people wouldn't dare to say. And what I know about success is that on the other side of it, it can actually be lonely. You can feel like more of an imposter the more successful you become. And when you're the most interesting person in the room, you're actually in the wrong room. I coach around insight. Life looks one way, something happens, the world looks different, and your entire world changes. It can happen in an instant. And this podcast is called One Insight because a single insight can change everything. One of the problems of being well known is that people tend to look at you and compare what they perceive of you with how they feel on the inside. We compare how we feel on the inside with how others look on the outside. In fact, even worse than that, we compare how we feel on the inside at our worst with everyone else's highlight reel. So we get on Instagram and Facebook, we read about someone well known, and we make up, this is what life must be like all the time. And we compare it with our worst moments, and we feel less than on a regular basis. And I say that because me too. And it's part of human nature. And so that's my context for today. I don't know how that will be relevant to each of you, even if it will be relevant, but I speak it out loud because it's true for me. I get caught in doing that if I'm not careful. And even though I get it intellectually, the problem is I'm human. And for most of human history, this body that we're in was designed in a unique way. It was designed to survive. And to survive throughout most of human history, if there was danger, a wild animal, a warring tribe, an enemy, all the blood would rush away from your head. It's supposed to be in your limbs, so you could run away, you could fight if you needed to, you could hide if you needed to. So when we get afraid, we stop thinking clearly. Our bodies are designed to do that. It sounds crazy when I say it out loud, but that's uniquely how our bodies are designed. The moment we get afraid, we get fearful, we get insecure, we have doubts, all the blood comes out of here and we can't think clearly. So all the stuff we know in our clearest moments is meaningless when life has its challenges that it throws at us. And I say that again, out loud for me. Because I forget that on a regular basis. And when I'm in it, I couldn't even access it if I tried. So hi, Rene.
Hi, Rich.
Hey. So why are you here? What had you say yes to come and join me today?
Because your message about how to set up a coaching business. I believe that I was put here to be a coach. I believe that's my mission. I believe that I'm great at it. And after having worked in a corporate environment for about 28 years, and then accidentally falling into this entrepreneurial life and bouncing around in it for a few years. And, when you said that feeling less than, because yes, I've been in that loop that you talk about in the book of you got to be on social media, you've got to be in this funnel, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And it's worked somewhat, but not at the level I wanted to. And I feel like I'm being forced into something. I'm allowing myself to be forced into a style of working that does not fit me. And so when I read what you said in the book, like, oh my gosh, this would be so wonderful. This sounds like me.
Yeah. And we forget, we think because the people online are so loud in how they speak, that the way you're supposed to build a business is Facebook, social media, building a funnel. We think that's the way it's supposed to be. And it's always been that way. Well, not for most of human history. Most of human history, you had a product or a service, and if people liked it, they told other people about it. If you took care of people, they told other people about it. And you built a business one relationship at a time. That's why the Prosperous Coach resonates with people, because it's built into our system, into our DNA. It's an old-fashioned approach. But it's hard these days, because every time you turn online, all the people speaking the loudest are the ones telling you this is the way it should be done. And we think it must be the way it's done, because it's what we hear all the time.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I have an old story of that. I wasn't meant to be an entrepreneur. And so that was one of the things that I had to work through to even see myself as a business person, that, that I can marry the two things, the gift that I have to coach and help, and I focus on women. So I do help women change lives. And you're right, one conversation at a time. And it could be anywhere, anytime. If you have a conversation with me, you will leave differently in a better way. And I know that that's my gift. But I love
that you can own that. That's really, like, I want to acknowledge that. I love that you own that. Anytime you have a conversation with me, you will leave different. That's powerful.
Yes, I believe that. And I've built this business thing into this separate entity of what I am not.
Yeah. So what would make this a valuable conversation for you today? What would be life-changing for you?
Gosh, I don't want to say that I need you to give me permission. I guess I need you to, what would be life-changing for me is for me to finally give myself permission to own my path, and to even know what that is, and to be good with it.
I'm pausing because I'm thinking about what's my path. I realized quite recently that I've got this secret way of running my business. It's 3 words. Excuse my bad language, but it's make shit up.
Oh, I love it. Just let shit go. That's one of my metrics.
But really, that's what I do. I make shit up on a regular basis. And people see the stuff that sticks, right? But the stuff that doesn't, no one knows about it. And we get caught in this trap of looking for the system. I saw somebody the other day online on Facebook said, I will teach you the precise blueprint for how I built my $30 million business. Well, come on. If it was that simple, everyone would have a $30 million business. Why bother with your business? Why not read Richard Branson's autobiography and then we'd all be billionaires? It's not what you're doing. It's who you're being when you're doing that. And it's also timing, and it's also luck, and there's so many other factors in it. So the only way is to do it your way.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, I'm not even going to, I don't even know, because I won't sit down and add it up, but how many thousands of dollars I've wasted. Well, and I take that back, because I do believe nothing's wasted, but that I poured into business, this business coach, that business coach, this business coach. At the end of this past year, I just had to just break away from all of that, and tune back into myself. And so I really would love to be pretty much off of social media and to build community offline in a different way. I don't know exactly how to do that, because I've been listening for so long to people telling me that this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
But I just know that I've got to find a different way, because that's not my way.
Nice. Yeah, I've stopped using Facebook for my groups now, because what would happen, I'd go into the post in the group, and I use something called, I think it's called Newsfeed Eradicator, which if you use that as on Google Chrome, it will filter out everyone's posts. I don't see anyone's posts, but the moment I go into Facebook, somehow it still sucks me into things, all that little buttons in the red icon in the corner, what people liked, and I get caught in that. So we've stopped even using Facebook for our groups we're running right now, because their business model is based on keeping me there for as long as they can. And they do a really good job, because I get sucked in. I'm human. You're the best scientists on the planet. Been working on that for a decade. So I love this idea of you being out of social media. So you remind me of Michael Neal, who I apprenticed with years ago. And I think he'd been writing his blog for only a handful of years when I first started working with him. And what he shared with me is, I just had a bunch of friends who said to me, will you share with us some of the stuff you think about and talk about? I said, sure. And 3 people got his email. And then it was 5, and then it was 7, and now it's in its tens of thousands. I have an email list that until I think 2 years ago was about 4,000 people. And it's now grown to 10,000 people. In the internet marketing world, that's tiny. But it doesn't have to be big. In fact, we have a 30-something% open rate for our emails. Now, I thought that was really low, because what do you mean? Like 70% of people don't even read my emails? And then I found out from some friends that it's really high, apparently. It's in the 10s and 20s percent that people consider high. And I had this insight that shifted things for me when I realized, a friend who's a marketer said to me, it's like every time you send an email out to people, Rich, and 10,000 people read it, 10,000 people get it, 3,000 people read it. That's like having a mega church where once a week, 3,000 people drive in to listen to what you've got to say. On my calendar every week now, it says, write the weekly sermon. Because it has me show up in a way of realizing, wow, this is an amazing community I've created. But 15 years ago, I was a high school teacher, Rene. How do you build a community? You build it one person at a time. How do you build a movement? You allow yourself to be moved. That's one way you can move other people.
I love that. Allow myself to be moved. Yes, I love that. That is.
So, Dan, that expression you see on Rene right now with her eyes closed and she's speaking very quietly, that's the sound of insight. And that's the moment as a coach, I do what I call take someone off the hot seat. I give them space just to breathe or to pause. If Rene was a client in a session, we might be complete right now. Coaching doesn't have to take hours. When you coach around insight, that shift can change everything. Dan, any thoughts or insights from anything we talked about?
Yeah, I had so many other things I wanted to talk about, but that Facebook thing really got to me. I spend a lot of my time there, and I'm always really guilty about that. You know, I know that is not something I'll be lying on my deathbed going, oh, thank God I spend so much time scrolling on Facebook, you know.
It's a weird business they have. Their business is predicated on the fact that they're trying to do every psychological trick in the book to keep people on that website. And I've never met anyone who says, I love spending more and more time. Almost all of us have this, at least those of us building businesses and having families. I wish I didn't spend so much time there. It's an interesting concept. Yeah.
Yep, there's definitely a lot of wastage there. And
what would make this a really powerful conversation for you today?
I was thinking about that, and again, like you, I didn't want to put pressure on myself to be, you know, to come up with something brilliant as a question. The simplest way I can put it is to figure out what the next level is for me. I know that there's a couple of barriers to that. One is that I have a tendency to spread myself thin. I like to take on lots of different projects. I'm a starter more than a finisher. I've got a book on the go. I do a YouTube channel. I do a podcast. I do coaching. I do even live stuff at the right time. And it does feel like butter melted over bread a bit. And like I'm not going deep enough on any one particular thing, but I'm loath to give up any of those things.
Yeah.
So I've got that resistance. And then I've got, I guess, some limiting beliefs about who I can coach, particularly in terms of their finances. I don't want my coaching to ever be about money, but I also understand for me to have a bigger impact, wealth is a resource for that. And I'm not talking shit there. Like, I don't need the money for myself. I'm a minimalist, but for me to have the reach that I want to have, I need resources. And that's going to come from coaching people who pay me more, simply put, or at least that's the thought in my head. And yet the kind of people I love to work with, I have a story about how they can't afford more than what I charge currently. So again, I think I actually put pressure on myself to come up with that really perfect answer that I just gave you. But it's probably quite accurate as well, so who knows? That's kind of...
Well, let's find out. I heard two things there. One, you do so much and you don't want to give that up because it feels good doing all that stuff. I love that. When you say melted butter on bread, it's just like it's spread so thin. Have you heard of the 80-20 rule?
Oh yeah, big fan of that. Got into that through 4-Hour Workweek, and then I actually read the 80-20 stuff, direct source, yeah.
And you're a minimalist, so you practice the 80-20 rule, but it sounds like you don't practice it in your business. So most of us have a fear, right? That's why people's houses are full of stuff. Who wants to give up all this stuff? Why people's closets are full of clothes when they wear 80% of them 20% of the time. And it sounds like you have a business where it might be valuable to have a look at what are the 20% of the activities that I do that generate 80% of the fun, results, impact, clients, and money.
I do that, and then it bleeds out. So about once a quarter, I do this brutal culling of my task list based exactly on that. I have a big spreadsheet of who my clients are, look at who they are, and I track how they came to me, how we met each other, everything. And I do pie charts and all sorts of stuff just for my own amusement. And I go, okay, so this is where they're all coming from. That's where my attention needs to go. And this is where they're not coming from, example, Facebook. And that's where my attention needs to be taken away. And that lasts a few weeks. And then it's this kind of, I don't know what it is. Partly it's fun. Like I love making videos, for example, but I wouldn't say a lot of my clients come from my videos. But I love doing it. So I get this kind of dilemma, like I can't see it in the 20% for my business, but I can see it in the 20% for my enjoyment of life.
Nice.
You know?
That's good. That's good to be clear what it's for.
Yeah.
One thought I have is why not find out what your clients would love you to make videos on, and then actually have the two merge in a way that you haven't considered before.
Well, that's quite validating because that is what I started doing. I started doing an Ask Me Anything where basically I answer their questions as videos. Or I make videos for people, like if someone sends me an email, rather than emailing them back, I'll make them a personal video.
Yeah.
So I do think I've found a little bit of balance there. But I do fuck around a lot. Let's be fair. I scroll on Facebook. I go through all the comments and all the shit. There's no value to anyone really coming out of that at the end, other than just time.
Well, again, just check. Like if you're doing it consciously and you know it's for fun, there's nothing wrong with that. These days, we didn't have that a few years ago, but a few years ago you might have gone and played soccer. Now you want to sit on or watch TV in your living room, and you'd have watched all the adverts and not thought anything about the commercials. Like you wouldn't have thought anything of it because it's just what you would have done 10, 15, 20 years ago. This is a different version. So if you're doing it for fun, that's okay if you're doing it consciously.
No, I feel like I'm doing it unconsciously in the sense that it's some sort of distraction. It's not meaningful, some of that work.
Most addictions come from a deep fear or deep pain. What's the fear or the pain that scrolling on Facebook keeps away, at least for another few minutes?
And this is right at the heart of what we're talking about, I think. So there's a story in my head that's the closest I've got to identifying this fear. There's people I want to coach. They're brilliant people. They're my kind of people, which are people pleasers. So they could be so much more than what they are because they're just constantly self-sacrificing and seeking approval and validation. And yet for some reason, I seem obsessed with only working with the most financially insecure niche of that group. And I tell myself a story that they need me the most, and that, I don't know, the ones who are doing better with their careers or something, I don't know. My fear is going into them.
And what's the fear? That's what you're afraid of, but what are you afraid of underneath that? See, what I have an advantage, Rene. What I know is that Dan has worked to help rehabilitate some of the most dangerous and violent criminal offenders on the planet. So this is a man who doesn't have a fear of things that would scare most people. I've coached former Navy SEALs, Special Forces operatives from Britain, Canada, and America, actually. People who have done things that would scare most people on the planet, but all of them had a fear. And often they're things that surprise people. One guy had a fear of asking for money. Another had a fear of building a business. It doesn't matter about that. We have our stuff going on. We're human. What are you actually afraid of? If you spoke to those people who you'd like to work with, what are you afraid of?
Simply put, I think there's fear of success there. Which is really saying fear of change, but massive change. You know, I watch some of the people that I admire a lot, YouTube, I listen to their podcasts, but people like just like yourself. And I think like I could do that. And I suspect that as much as I want to do that, I prevent myself from doing it somehow. For the life of me, I don't know why. It's not like I feel afraid, but you can see it in my behavior. There's a hesitancy, distraction, avoidance. All the telltale signs of fear are there.
I'm reflecting for myself because I'm thinking I'm a known entity in this world of coaching right now. That's just how it is. So I can acknowledge that. But I've never set out to say I want to be known by many, many coaches. I just set out to, in fact, years ago, if you can still find it online because the stuff's always saved. If you watch my oldest videos, when I started doing an online program years ago, I was so afraid of looking at the camera. I'd say 2 words and I'd coach someone. And I pretended my gift is coaching. That's why I don't really talk to you very much, talk to the camera. It's because I was terrified to talk to the camera. 5, 6 years later, I had this real confidence, but it wasn't there 5, 6 years ago. I was terrified. So, but I never said to myself, I need to be like one of those guys out there. I think that would have intimidated me too much.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that that's it. I just don't know what. I can't see the shadow that I'm afraid of.
Well, let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. When you have a why that's big enough, you can do anything. It's scary to work with criminal offenders sometimes for many people. If you have a reason for doing it, you'll get past your stuff. It's scary to make videos online. You have a reason for doing it, you'll make videos online. And what we have to find is what's a why that's big enough that will get you past that stuff.
Well, if I just speak sort of off the top of my head, I have a theory that comes from working with criminal offenders, which is 90+% of the suffering out there comes from lack of confidence. It was my biggest insight when I came to work with criminals is they're not actually as mean, as nasty as they made out to be in the movies. They're actually deeply insecure. That's the cause of their behavior. They're deeply ashamed. There are a few nutters, but they're actually the exception. And then, of course, I saw that in myself. All my suffering came from low self-confidence and the behavior that stemmed from that. So I'm very sure that my why is like, it's like knowing the cure for cancer. It's like, I've got to get this thing out there. Like, I can't believe people don't know how to build their confidence and how effective that is to solving like the problems that cause them the most misery. Like, it's right there. They just have to be more honest. It's so obvious. Honesty especially is my thing. So I feel like for me, my why is like, I want to inject the world with honesty. I think it's a cure to most of the ills. But I think I'm scared of doing that as well. I don't know why, but the thought of like being big enough to have an impact where it actually shifts things measurably, something about that, well, my behavior says it all. I hold myself back. So I'm definitely scared.
So let me, instead of coaching you around this, let me just be provocative. You selfish bastard. I mean, you use the analogy, it's like I've got a cure for cancer. Yeah, you got something, I think some of the world's most massive problem, terrorism. Who creates these terror attacks? It's young, disaffected men who have this rage inside of them because they lack confidence, they don't have success with women or in life, and they're manipulated by people who want them to do bad things. Criminals, whatever it is, this deep lack of self-confidence has people do all sorts of things which they wouldn't do if they felt more comfortable in their own skin. And you know this, and you get this, and you have these unique insights from working with some of the most people in the most challenging circumstances on the planet who've been incarcerated for what they did because of a story that goes back so far for many of them. and you're playing around on Facebook.
I like that. Yeah, there's really no getting around that. I think I'll think about that for a second.
Yeah, and if it wasn't a podcast, I'd leave you in that stillness. We'd sit there in that silence. So I'll take you off the hot seat and let you sit with that for a moment, because it's when we have an insight, we just Rene, I noticed earlier when you had that insight moment, your eyes just went up and you were quiet. You weren't even with us. You were with the insight. So where are you in this moment, either from before where I took you, Rene, or where you are in this moment?
Oh, yeah. Well, so there's this book called The 3-Word Rebellion. It's a new book. And the premise of it is that this is how great movements start. You know, what's your 3-word rebellion? And mine is take the trip, for several reasons, mainly because I love to travel, but I also know that there are internal trips that we need to take. And, you know, I'm working with a woman right now who's never gone to the movies by herself. That's her assignment, to go to the movie theater by herself. I went to Portugal by myself last month. That was on my list of things, ways to challenge myself to take an international solo trip. But there are so many mental, emotional, spiritual journeys that we need to take. And so when you said, allow myself to be moved, that, you know, hit me there, because I have allowed myself to stay stuck in, you know, old stuff, you know, that continues to follow you, you know, being extremely self-conscious, even though people who see me now don't see that. But I know that that person that I was when I was a child, who would literally cross the street to avoid having to make eye contact with someone, that's still a part of me. You know, I realized in my teens that, you know, there are a lot of things that, I mean, I want to see as much of the world as possible. And I knew to live the kind of life that I wanted to live, I couldn't stay in that shy persona. So I moved myself a lot, but then it's still like there's this ceiling. Like I've gone, yeah, I've done a lot of work. But now I'm at this crossroads of where I really could soar if I allowed myself to be moved.
Yeah. What's moving you right now? Because I can see it in your face, I can feel it in your energy. What's moving you in this moment?
That, you know, when you told Dan that he was selfish, that's a loaded word for me. But then when you said it to him, I was like, wow, yeah. And I've heard this before, that, you know, don't think about selling, think about service. You are serving. There are people waiting on you there that need what you have. And I know that. And when you said, you selfish bastard, and I wrote that down, and then that self-conscious word came up for me, and they're kind of merged together. And I was like, wow, seemingly opposite, but not, you know, and I'm allowing my self-consciousness to make me selfish in my gift.
Yeah. I mean, I use that word with Dan deliberately to be provocative. And I want to acknowledge you for letting yourself be moved right now. This is how it starts, right? You let yourself feel everything you feel. My friend Steve Chandler has this metaphor. He says, what it's like is we're walking across the desert with this beautiful tank on our back with cold, clean, clear water. And around us, all these people dying of thirst. I need water, I need water. And we're like, you know what? I'm still dealing with some self-esteem issues. I'm not sure you're the right person to give the water to next. When I get to the next level, I'll be ready to give it to you. But I think there's someone over the horizon who needs it more.
Yeah.
Renee, what comes to me is some Christians wear a bracelet and it has 4 letters on it.
Yes.
WWJD. What would Jesus do?
Yes.
It makes life simple, not easy, but simple. They don't have to refer to the Bible, go to their priest. They just say, what would Jesus do in this moment? I have a vision of you with a bracelet that says WWRD. What would Renee do?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You caught it at the beginning when you said, I'd like permission from you. And then you realize, oh, it's not really permission from me. It's permission from yourself. And yeah, that's hard to do sometimes. But WWRD, you don't need permission. Like, what would she do? What would she do at her best? What would she do if she didn't care?
Yeah.
What would she do if she really wanted to do? Ask what she would do. My clients on a regular basis will say to me, you know, between the session, this thing came up and I asked myself, what would Rich do? And then I did that. And I said, well, what did he say? That word, you know, they say, I heard your voice in my head. What did he say? And they'll tell me what that voice of Rich said or what Rich would have done. And it's often so much better than what I would have actually said to them, because it's not really my voice. It's theirs. They've just found an excuse to allow them to do what they really want to do.
Yeah. And you know, I have clients tell me that they can hear me in those moments that, you know, oh, I know I can hear your voice in my head. Yep. I have clients tell me that. So yeah.
You need her voice in your head too.
Yeah.
WWRD. So let me tell you both a story right now, and this really will speak to you, I think, Dan. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest men on the planet, saw his pilot one day and said to his pilot, hey, oh my God, I realized you've been working with me for 10 years. I don't think I'm really serving you as powerfully as I can. Would you like me to help you? And he said, yeah. And he said, okay, well, I'll give you an exercise to help you take your life and business and everything to the next level. Go away and make a list of 25 of the most important things you want to do in life before you pass away from this planet. So he went away for a couple of days, came back, and Warren Buffett saw him and said, hey, did you do the list? Here it is. Pulls it out. Here's the top 25 things I want to do in my life. Okay, well, out of those 25, what are the top 5? The guy goes away again for another day, comes back and says, okay, Mr. Buffett, I've got it. These are my top 5. That's when it gets interesting, because Warren Buffett says, okay, what about the other 20? What are you going to do about them? He says, well, you know, I'll squeeze them in around the edges. I'll do them on the weekends or in evenings. And Warren Buffett says, that is your first mistake. Those other 20 things just became your avoid at all costs list. I think sometimes, Dan, we forget this in this world of talking about goals and what do we want to accomplish and what do they call it, bucket lists and all this stuff. What's on your not to do list? What's on your avoid at all costs list? How's that land for you, Dan?
Yeah. I think if I was to witness myself work for a week, it would be very clear. And that's actually something I can do. It's an exercise I can follow through on. A kind of, you know, people give like a food journal, you know, it'll just be a work journal. I'll see what I actually do. And it'll become very clear to me where all my energy is spent. But you landed with the selfish thing, because I don't know if I stole this from you or it naturally comes out for me. That's the exact same kind of thing I say to people. And it's a forest for the trees thing. When it's somebody else's issue, so clear, you know. But that's my trick. I spread myself thin, and that's how I kind of keep the water on my back, using your analogy. Yeah. So I'm too busy to dispense the water kind of thing. I'm not sure exactly yet how that's going to practically affect, you know, the day-to-day tasks, but I can get the picture there. It's kind of, I can see this, me pissing around like, should I work with this guy? Maybe I should focus on these. It's bullshit. If I was just like, hey, I've got like a day to get as much honesty into the world as possible because I might not live to see tomorrow. I'm like on this mission, it would be so clear what I have to do each day. It would be big, meaningful things, not lots of little things.
So there's your filter.
Yeah.
You probably heard me say the filter I have is hell yes or hell no. If it's not a hell yes, I have to call it a hell no. I was in a store looking at shirts and I thought, I love this one. But this one, I'm not sure about. Is it the lighting? Maybe I'll buy it and take it home, show Monique. And if she likes it, great. If she doesn't, I'll take it back. And I realized it's not a hell. When it's a hell yes, I just know. Anytime I buy any clothing that's not a hell yes, within a few days, I'm never wearing it again. It's just how it works. So what if that was your filter for clients, for activities, for things you do? Or you're really clear, you know what? It is a hell yes to spend an hour on Facebook right now. That's what I'm going to do.
That's my problem. I've got this like to-do list that I do every day instead of, I've been thinking about that for a while actually. It's just, what if I had no list and I just said, what's the best way to do this today? Or what's the thing I've got to be doing? I think I'd actually be far more productive with that than trying to tick all the boxes.
Yeah, you know what I've noticed about to-do lists is I write stuff down on a to-do list and I find it in a drawer weeks or months or years later and I go, oh yeah, done. Didn't do that one, but I didn't want it anyway. Done this one, that one forgot about. I wonder what would happen if you gave yourself an experiment for 30 days. For 30 days, I'm going to just do what I feel called to do. What's going to make a real impact? What feels like a hell yes? And if it's not a hell yes, I'm not going to do it. And let's see what happens in 30 days.
Yeah, I'm definitely on board with that. I like it. Just especially with this time in my life right now, like just got married and everything. It's got that blank slate kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
I think that's perfect time to do something like that. I really like that idea. It just feels good.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I think we're there. I can see from Renee's face, she's already creating this movement that's going to come. And that's what insight looks like. And that's what insight sounds like. It's pretty quiet. We think it'll be this big moment of aha, and it's actually quite stillness, sense of stillness, because we're reflecting. Oh, what if I did that? What would happen next? How would I do it? Where should I go? And so thank you so much for trusting me.
Wasn't hard to do, man. Just made the complicated simple. That's why I was so keen to get on this call. You know, I like your way of looking at things.
Nice. I'm always interested in the simplicity on the other side of complexity. Mm-hmm. There's simple, which people want. What are the 7 steps to 7 figures? There's that nonsense. Then there's complexity. I'll teach you the complex system behind my business so you can put it into practice. And then there's the simplicity on the other side of complexity. An avoid at all costs list. Hell yes or hell no. If I want to build a movement, I've got to let myself be moved.
Straightforward.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Rich.
Thank you.
Awesome stuff.
For most of human history, it wasn't called coaching. It was called leadership. And it's what I love to do. To coach people, to lead people, and to mess with people's thinking. If you'd like more of this, or if you'd like to learn more about our community of extraordinary top performers, go to richlitvin.com/oneinsight.